Hey everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on ParanormalZoneTV. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, if you would please subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. Now tonight I am so excited. Archbishop Ron Feyl is coming back to the show, and he's going to talk about his exorcism cases. And we had talked about that the last time he came on the show, and so now's the time to do this show, and I'm so excited to have Archbishop with us. Archbishop, thank you for joining me again on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a real privilege.
And you know, tonight you agreed to talk about your exorcism cases, and the last time when we did talk about it, you said, Noreen, you're going to have to make this a viewer discretion advisory show, and I did. That's what I did. Now, you know what I'd like to do though, before we actually get into your cases, there was just something I wanted to ask you about the Annalise. It's either Michelle or Michael. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. And she is the very well-known case from, I guess it was 1975, from Germany. And this now, I don't know if you know that much about this case, but this case, she had supposedly 6 demons. She was possessed by 6 demons, and what she was going through was horrific. Do you know about the case?
Briefly.
Briefly. Yeah, growling, and she would rip her clothes off. She would get on the floor, and she would urinate on the floor, and she would lick it. And then toward the end, she did have a kind of mental disorder. They did have her in the psychiatric ward for a short time. Then they said that she had epilepsy, but she started hearing voices, and the parents were able to get in contact with the Catholic priests, and they agreed to do an exorcism on this poor girl. And from 1975 to 1976, she had over 60 exorcisms, and the parents refused any more medical treatment for her, and so they continued with the exorcisms. It was like daily almost, and she stopped eating. She refused to eat, and then she said she wanted to take on and repent for all the sins out there. Now, there's been other cases, but I've never heard any audio from a case before. And I'm going to play this audio. I have a short clip, and I sent it to you, Archbishop. Did you have a chance to listen to it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm going to play this for the viewers, and then I want to ask you a question before we get into the cases. So let me play this for them.
Ja, ich will auch für die anderen leiden, damit die nicht in die Hölle kommen und so. Aber dass das dann so schlimm ist und so grausam und so furchtbar, nee.
Ihr Klötze! Nein, ihr Klötze! An der Maul, ihr Klötze! Oh, so gerne will er nicht, oh, ich gerne nicht, oh.
Ja, ich will auch für die anderen leiden, damit die nicht in die Hölle kommen und so. Aber dass das dann so schlimm ist und so grausam und so furchtbar, nee.
Ihr Klötze! Nein, ihr Klötze! An der Maul, ihr Klötze! Oh, so gerne will er nicht, oh, ich gerne nicht.
Okay. Now, that audio that I played for the viewers, I've never in my life heard anything like that with the growling. And so, what can you tell me about? Have the cases that you handled and took care of, did you also experience that kind of sounds coming from from those that are possessed?
You know, it's interesting. We all have a voice signature. And as a result, we all have a distinctive sound by the way we express ourselves, by the way the sounds come out of our mouth. As a result, sometimes we tend to even articulate and sounds like accents from where we were brought up and things in this nature. And it's all part of the voice analysis that goes on when we're talking about these subjects. The sounds that you heard are authentic as far as I'm concerned, because I've heard these voices before. They are not human voices. They are not subject to the confounds of the vocal cords and the voice box that we have. As a result, it comes from a different source. The sounds may be coming by way of through the mouth. However, the sounds themselves are not originating from the body. And if they are, now let me see if I say that right. They're being originated by the entity, or the demonic entity in this case. And as a result, there may be one or more voices that are mingled into the one. And as a result, a very strange, deep, and gargling voice will come out. And it's a very distinctive voice. And as a result, when you hear this voice, you know that you're dealing with something that's not of this world.
Yeah, but is that typical? Is that a typical sign for someone that is truly possessed?
It's a byproduct. It's a byproduct of all the signs. There's a whole list of things that if we had to list them all, the list would be as long as your arm. It's not when a person demonstrates one or two or three different various things off the list that may manifest itself through the person, but it's when they all are present. When you have not only the voice, but you have other things that take place, from supernatural strength, from the ability to see into the future or to know the past of any individual present in the room, to have incredible strength. And as a result, 3 or 4 times their weight size in terms of strength, which means they could pick up and lift literally a 300-pound man and throw him across the room without a problem. When you see all these things, not to mention levitation, which is also part of one of those, well, it happens to be on the list, I should say. But when all these things take place, then you know it's a little more than what could possibly be identified as a psychosis. According to my colleagues who are psychiatrists, they tell me that levitation is not exactly one of the byproducts of epilepsy, nor is it a byproduct of any other psychosis that a person may be suffering from. So as a result, the levitation has to be coming from a different origin. It's a different unexplained origin. And as a result, we explain it as a supernatural event because it's taking place within the heading of a person who is demonstrating symptoms of demonic possession. So this is one of the many signs that we see. So it's not just the one, it's not just the voice, it's all the other things that are accompanied with that particular symptom. So you take all these symptoms together, then you have yourself a genuine case. And if that be the case, you have to know exactly how to approach this case.
Now, before we do actually get into all of this, for those who are watching that may not have seen the first show that Archbishop was on, he discussed exorcisms and all the demonic steps of being possessed, or the steps of being possessed, and I will link that show with this show. So just in case some of the viewers haven't seen the first show, will you just tell them a little bit about yourself, Archbishop, and about how you're trained to do the exorcisms?
Well, as you know, I'm a Catholic priest. under the heading of the traditional Catholic, belonged to an old Roman Catholic order, was ordained in the early 70s and was consecrated in the early 80s. And I was appointed lead exorcist priest, and I was on a team of 3 other priests who would assist the exorcist, who in this case would be a bishop. I was just a priest at that time. When I was elevated, I was elected again to chief exorcist, and as a result, we started our ministry of the ministry of exorcism. But not only within the immediate confines of our geographical location, but we decided to expand our ministry beyond our town, beyond our state, beyond our country. And as a result, since 1981, as we were established as the Order of Exorcists, and I as the chief exorcist, I decided, and presiding bishop at this point, decided to expand our ministry to other countries. Right now we have 24 countries where we have clergy, and we have lead investigators, and in most cases they're laity. And we train them to the various techniques to see and to validate whether or not a case is true and real. And if so, we give them a step-by-step guide, if you will, and instructions as to how to obtain this information.
Okay. What would you like to? How would you like to start this? Oh, I want to ask you a question. Do you perform exorcisms on all people with different faiths?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The only criteria is that the person, the victim, has to want to accept our help. They have to agree that and help us, in essence, to help them. They have to agree to allow us to pray over them, and they have to be willing to accept the healing that comes from God. So if they're willing to do that, it doesn't make a difference what denomination they are formerly from. The real issue is, would they accept our services, and if so, would they accept the healing power and sensations that come from our Lord Jesus Christ?
Do they have
as
to,
we use Him in all our rituals?
Do they have to be religious in order for this to work?
They have to be open to allow us to help them. They don't have to be religious, but they do have to understand that there is a God, and that God is going to help them through their difficulty, and they're going to be delivered by our Lord Jesus Christ. And if they're willing to understand that and be open to that, then we're going to do anything we can to help that individual from the beginning to the end.
Has anybody ever faked it? And I mean, there are actors out there, and people can fake things. Has anybody faked being possessed, and an exorcism was performed on them?
Yeah, unfortunately, we live in a world where our society requires many things: food, substance, shelter. We also enjoy our entertainment, but we also enjoy one other thing, and it's called attention. And so there are some people that may not be psychotic, but may really go into that motion where they need the attention because of maybe they're lonely, or maybe they have some series, a form of light depression, and they feel that they need the attention of an organization such as ours. And so that does happen, and that's why we have what I refer to as the process, which I will go into, if you like, into great detail. That we have to, what we do is we train our investigators to say the right questions at the right time. We have them follow our analytical approach in regards to gathering information and collecting the evidence. I could honestly say that if a person is possessed, truly possessed, we're going to find it. We're going to find it out, and we do it by many means. And if the individual is faking, we're going to find that out too. And through the process of demonic investigation and assessments that our investigators perform, they will collect the information and they will give us, whether or not there's evidence or not, they're going to give us everything that they've collected. And once that's in place, then I review it along with we have 3 medical physicians on staff. We have 2 that are psychiatrists. So in the event that it's a case of demonic possession, we always request the full examination, psychological examination as well as a physical. And then their doctors would forward us the information. I would forward us and I forward that information to our doctors. They would look at it. They will they'll either agree with the diagnosis or confirm, and then they would give me their recommendations. And at that point, I would look at the assessment reports that are prepared by our investigators, and then I will weigh the difference, and then I'll pray, and then I'll get some type of what we refer to as discernment. I will actually know what I feel is valid and what is not. And I can honestly say that I'm probably, with using this approach, I'm probably close to maybe 96% accurate in terms of whether or not I could actually see a genuine case or see something that looks more like a prank, where the person is just trying to create something that would not be what they're claiming it to be. And so as a result, I have to look through all the various stuff out there to see whether or not it's a valid case. So as we do this approach, we're pretty accurate.
Okay. Do you want to start telling the viewers about some of these horrific cases?
I have to first, and I know you made a disclosure, but I really need to emphasize this because there's something about listening to this kind of information, and then there's something that takes place in the process. Every time we hear or take in information, we leave a permanent mark on the cortex of our brain. What I'm about to give you is going to leave many marks, and as a result, there might be a repercussion. It's like the more you learn about a particular area or subject that might be horrifying and tremendously terrifying, the more you learn about it, the more you get caught up in it, and you could actually have it become more like an obsession, where you start experiencing certain things and seeing things that you've never seen before because of the information I'm about to give you. So I have to make it perfectly clear that if you're listening to this interview, I'd like you to just take a second and think about whether or not you may want to proceed and listen to the rest of the information. And take it with a grain of salt. I don't expect you to believe everything I say, but I do think that your open-mindedness to some of the facts that I am going to convey, and if that be the case, take it in with caution. Because the more you know, the more you put yourself in jeopardy of being attacked by the demonic, especially when we're talking about this subject. Stuff is real. It's not really for entertainment value. This stuff is as dangerous as any explosives or dynamite or anything else for that matter. And so as a result, you have to really understand that what I'm about to tell you is real. I'm not exaggerating.
Okay.
You made a statement of this one case, Emily Rose.
Can you excuse me for a minute? Just go ahead and talk. I've got to get up and do something.
Okay, sure.
Go ahead.
Well, this case with Emily Rose, they made a movie and they included all the various information that was presented to them, and of course they elaborated on certain areas for entertainment value. And as a result, a lot of it was extremely exaggerated, and some of it was not even mentioned because of perhaps maybe it would be too hard to digest. Maybe it would be too difficult to sit and watch and listen and be entertained, if you will. But there's a lot of things to the case that have not been revealed, and for good reason. All these cases that are considered genuine cases of demonic possession, you will never hear the full details. You will never really truly hear a recording or see an actual video recording of an actual ritual that may take place, because there is a certain amount of danger that's involved when you are sitting and you're witnessing this. Certain channels in your brain will start opening up, and you start accepting more information and more to this scenario as, well, what if this may be true? And as a result, you start entertaining certain ideas. As a result, you could place yourself in terrible danger. I've said many times before that all of us are targets for the demonic. The demonic is just waiting for us to drop our guard, or waiting for us to be so oblivious to the reality of his existence that we might fall into the hands of the demonic, and as a result, horrible things can take place. These guys would involve torment, physical torment, things that will involve mental anguish, things that will tear you apart physically from the inside out. Interesting. Every true case of true demonic possession, you can always tell if you're dealing with someone who is truly possessed by the appearance of the person who's possessed. One of the things would be the stench, the smell that comes from the body. Now, what you're doing is, if you've ever been around a body that's been deceased for a while, certain odors will start will come from the body, and as a result, you can tell it smells like rotten meat. It's a horrible stench.
Is it similar to rotten chicken?
Let's see, rotten chicken. I'm more of a steak
That's pretty
myself,
bad.
So.
Rotten chicken is really bad. I've never smelled a dead body. That's the only thing that I can always think of is bad chicken.
There's certain chemicals that in our body that are different than the chemicals that are in a chicken's body, and I think as a result, there might be a different scent. But it's a foul scent. It's a scent where you just want to get out of the immediate area because it smells so bad. That you take the aroma in and it drips down to your inner core, and you can feel it and you feel uncomfortable and you just want to get out of that place. Well, that's the exact feeling you would feel if you were in the room of someone who has a true demonic possession. The first thing that comes to mind for you would be, I don't want to be here. I want to leave. This is not what I expected. This is too terrifying. This is too real. And as a result, I just want to leave. And that's the first thought that would come in your mind. When you're in a room and the temperature has dropped, and you feel the goose pimples up and down your arms, and you can feel the hair stand up the back of your neck, and you start listening and hearing eerie sounds that you've never heard before. You've never heard these sounds before, because they're not sounds that are created by a natural means, let's say the means of anything that may occur in a given place in terms of nature. These are sounds, the sounds that you could expect to hear if you were in the bottomless pit of hell. The sounds of torture, the screaming sounds, screeching sounds of people being tormented. Now, imagine all of that, all those elements in the one room that you happen to be standing in, and that is in the room of the person who's possessed, truly possessed. At that point, your legs feel so stiff, your feet feel like lead, you can't move. You couldn't run out of the room even if you wanted to, because you're so you have this hypnotic sensation where you are just totally focused in the center of the room, and you're scared to death. Totally scared. You don't know how to react because you never had this type of experience before. And as a result, you're just there and you're just totally watching the entire thing. As people are moving around you, the priest, the assistants, and so on, as they move around, they pull out the sacramentals, they pull out the crosses, the holy water, the blessed salt, the holy oil. They put all the elements, they have the candles lit. You're watching all this, and in your mind you're saying, I can't relate to any of this. This has never happened to me before. I've never had this experience. And as a result, and this is only part of the human nature, you don't know how to react. You're terrified, and yet you're curious. You're so curious that you're terrified. and you don't know how to handle the terrifying emotion because you're curious. And the same token, you don't want to be as curious because you're terrified. So it's kind of the proverbial catch-22. So there you are. You're smelling the smells that are coming and radiating from this body that's in the bed. And the body is tied to the bed. And you're smelling these aromas coming up. Then you start hearing sounds, maybe a tapping sound, maybe a scratching sound. Maybe you start hearing the flesh literally move around the bones of the skin. And you're looking at it and you see the discoloration. The flesh is no longer a fleshy tone pigmentation of color. It is a gray, as to whether or not you may have seen this type of grayness in dead bodies, that if you go to the morgue, you see other areas that are not covered with clothing, their skin is gray, wrinkled gray. And as a result, you're watching this for the very first time and you're totally, completely terrified. You may hear the priest say, accompany us in the responses. You know, read the prayers, okay, and follow us as we do the ritual. And you'd be so terrified, you can't get your lips to cooperate, and your tongue is frozen in your mouth because you're totally shocked and you're still trying to take in all of what's happening around you. And it gets even gloomier because the little light that was in the room seems to have dissipated. And you find yourself in a room that's not totally lit, but rather in a room that has a gray, thick covering, this gray, thick cloud, if you will. It seems to be radiating all around you. And you're looking through this grayness to see what's happening around you. And as all your senses are heightened because you're taking in the aroma, you're taking in the sounds, you're taking in all the movements, and as a result, you're taking all this in simultaneously, and as a result, you are feeling the ordeal happen. Your sense of empathy has gone way up and way over. You're not only feeling what's going on with this poor individual who is going through so much torment, you just wish that if this was a movie, you could just walk out and not see how it ends. But unfortunately, you made the commitment to walk into the room, and there you are. You can't move anyway, and you have perhaps maybe a prayer book or a pamphlet in your hands, and you're asked to read the responses as the priest continues the rituals, continues to read the rituals. And as a result, you're there, and you're kind of like it's catch-22, and so there you are. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about some of the things that you may not have heard of, some of the things that you may not even be aware of. For example, when a person is possessed, one of the things you will not see is the person's eyelids blink. Their eyes will stay open. They will have a constant opening. It's a normal bodily function for us to blink our eyes once every 15 or 20 seconds. It's to lubricate the eyeball. So it's a normal function. For a person who's possessed, there's nothing normal about it. As a result, the eyes remain open, and they are open wide. At that point, their pupils start dilating, and they dilate to the fullest. And it gives the illusion that their entire whole eye is blackened, like a shark, if you will, like shark size. And then you start seeing other things that take place. You may see lesions start appearing in the skin. The skin will start to open up and separate. And you won't see any blood, but you will see how deep the lesions are as they go deep almost to the bone. And in most cases, people who are possessed for any length of time, who've ever been suffering these symptoms for any length of time, they become very undernourished. They become very skinny. But however, it does not affect their strength, because the demonic has and is extremely strong. And anyone near that person will have their heads ripped off if given the opportunity. So the priest, the assistants, and everyone in the room must be willing to jump in and make sure the individual is bound to a bed. Make sure their hands are tied, separated, like the term spread eagle, if you will. The ankles have to be bound. And when this happens, this is for not only for the individual who is suffering from all of this horribleness of being possessed, but also for the people around that individual. We've had individuals, we've had investigators become extremely hurt because of various things that took place. We've had priests that have been attacked while this was happening and in the midst of the whole process. And then we've also had people like yours truly that has almost lost their lives as a result of performing in this type of fashion. What we're dealing with is something real. Now, you asked me a couple of days ago about the most serious case, and I replied back to you and I said all the cases are serious. Every case that is a true demonic case is bad. And when I say bad, I'm understating it. I mean, it's the worst you could ever imagine. Take your worst nightmare that you've ever had and magnify that about 1,000 times over. And then after you do that, magnify that because it is terrible. Right? The reason is why it's so terrifying is because it's happening within your space. It's happening within your line of vision. It's happening right there in your presence. You know, it's not like you're watching someone get killed and you're watching TV and you're watching somebody get killed, you know, in some kind of plot there and then people are murdering people and so on. You know, you don't react to it. But if you were there in person and you saw someone actually kill someone, you'd react so violently. Your whole body would react to it because you'd go through a shock. Your whole system would be traumatized because of the experience. This is what happens when you're in the vicinity of a real demonic entity, where everything is all around you and you see it happening before your very eyes and you know it's real. I mean, this is not what you see in the movies. You know, what you see in the movies, as I said, you know, they will pinpoint various things and they will elaborate for entertainment value. But the real value, you mentioned this case of Emily. She licked up her urine
Annalise, Annalise Michael.
Okay. Yes, yeah, she licked up her urine from the floor. The point I'm trying to make is these are things you don't really hear about. The case I'm about to tell you about is a case where the individual was eating bugs off the floor. And as a result, all the cats in the area were disappearing because this person would go out with their friends and they would get all the animals and sacrifice them and consume their bodies. And as a result, you don't hear about things like that because, let's face it, it's not real entertainment. It's very it's a horrifying thing to even know. And so this is what we're talking about. I was reading an interesting article about, I don't know if you remember the serial killer. He was known as the Son of Sam in New York. Back in 1976, and he was terrorizing people and killing them. And he was also known as the 44 caliber killer as well. Anyway, they were killing him, and the police were chasing him. They were running circles. They were running leads that were cold. They just couldn't catch the fellow, and they finally caught him. He not only confessed to all the murders, but he also confessed to the point that he was told to do these murders by demons. Demons have driven him to a point where he was compelled to obey them, and as a result, it became part of what he was doing. And then it was found out later that he was also involved in a satanic cult, and where they actually did animal sacrifices, human sacrifices, and so on. It's pretty horrifying.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The cases. Okay, so are all these cases connected to some kind of where these people practice black magic or satanic rituals or using the Ouija board or something like that? Are they all?
There's a thing that's known in physics as cause and effect. I have to apply it in this scenario. If you do something and some type of action, you're going to something's going to come back to you as a result of your actions. The cause and effect. If a person chooses to communicate with demonic entities by way of using Ouija boards or channeling other areas, they're opening up all kinds of horrible things. And as a result, there's a cause and effect. Person may play with a Ouija board, and for years and never get hurt. It's just, in fact, you become friends with the person who identifies himself as maybe as your guardian angel or maybe as your counsel or whatever. The point I'm trying to make is that the demonic has a very deceitful nature, and it will appear as an angel of light, and it will tell you that it was there to help you and will guide you and help you make the right decisions. And to a point where your relationship with this invisible entity becomes so heightened that you begin to rely on this entity. And this entity is given the opportunity, but this is only the whole purpose of the demonic, is to have you invite them into your space. Have them come into your space by invitation. And so once this happens, then of course the relationship goes into another level where the person who invited the demonic entity into their space does not know that you cannot, tell him to leave. Once he's in there, once he comes into your space, he's in your space, and he's going to do his tremendous damage. It comes to a point where demonic oppression becomes the mild to severe harassment that a person would receive. And it's because of the cause and effect. By opening certain doors, there are certain things that will happen. And then when it happens, then it's going to be too late to close those doors. Then that's when you have to seek an organization such as ours. We are people that have a calling from God, who are willing to put themselves up in front of the demonic and help you as much as possible. And always remember, no matter what you hear, we never charge anything. All our services are free because this isn't, we don't have a business, we have a ministry. And this is what we do. We help people. And there are so many people out there that are going to need our services. And there are people now that are contacting us and are waiting because we just don't have enough members to accommodate everybody. Something else we can talk about later on if you wish. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, go ahead.
No, go ahead with your telling us about these exorcisms.
I'm tell you another brief story too, if I may.
Okay.
Back in 2008, there was a Dr. Richard E. Gallagher, and he's a board-certified psychiatrist, and also another individual who happened to be an associate professor of clinical psychiatry from the New York Medical College. They witnessed firsthand the demonic possession as a real scenario, where they saw the individual levitate, and by no means just levitated, by demonstrating superior knowledge in regards to their personal lives, future and past events, where they were able to do amazing things, and they documented everything. And it's really unique when the medical community can get along with our particular ministry and say what you're doing is extremely valid, okay, because this has happened. As I said, we have 2 psychiatrists who are in the order. They are men of science, and they also have come to the point and acceptance that these things are real, for they truly are. But I'm going to get to a case. I'm going to tell you about a case that occurred, and this wasn't too long ago. And then I'm just going to, if I use any names, understand I've changed the names, okay, to protect the innocent. Everything we do is extremely confidential, so I'm not going to give any personal details about any of these cases. Okay. But I will talk about in general, what took place, what we observed, and what the outcome was.
Okay.
Okay, and before I do that, I have to tell you that our organization and our investigators, they follow a process. I created this process back in the early 80s, and it seems to be the most effective process, where our investigators will do what's referred to as a pre-site investigation. This is where they look the individuals up, every individual household, find out what their backgrounds are, if they have any similar complaints in the past, are there anything that was written regards to who they are, and so on. And once we have that and their profiles there, then our investigators do a first contact interview. And then they cover everything from the physical to the psychological and to the physical manifestations that may be taking place in the house. Then our lead investigators put an assessment report together, and they submit their report along with the medical and psychological reports, and it comes to my office. At that point, I do my thing. Now, I bring this up just as a point of reference. We have a process. We never bypass the process. Not only because this is the best and analytical way to do it in regards to being accurate, but also because there's some legal issues involved. In the event we should do something and we bypass the procedure which I just mentioned, if we bypass that procedure and say, okay, we're going to rush in and do an exorcism, we do that, the person doesn't need an exorcism, it could throw that person further into their psychosis, and it could do more harm than good. That person could wind up committing suicide as a result of our presence, trying to accommodate them because they want a ritual of exorcism done to them where it's not needed. And as a result, we never rush in to do this. We follow the steps of the process, as I outlined quite briefly there. So as a result, I'm going to tell you a story, and only part of the process was done. That's the process where the investigation, where the interview was done, where the first contact interview was done, and then a demonic investigation throughout the house. Our investigators carry video cameras. They tape everything from the beginning to end. We get everything, collect all the evidence. Now, this was only part done. We did not collect the psychological reports or the medical reports on this case I'm about to tell you. But something extraordinary happened where we had to bypass the system. And it only happens maybe once in a blue moon, because we have to follow the process. Because if you leave anything out, it could fall back on us, and we could become legally liable as a result if the individual should happen to commit suicide. So I'm going to start with the case. Case is in Riverside, California. It was about, I'd say in the evening, about 9 o'clock or so. There was a voice of a terrorized woman. She was over the phone, and she was just panicking and screaming and saying her brother was possessed by a demon, and she didn't know what to do. And she started to say that he would change in front of her, and a complete transformation would take place and become a totally different person. And as a result, become violent and did horrible things, from eating bugs off the ground to eating anything he can that was totally gross. And he started defecating, and he started digesting that. And then, it all just got really, really very graphic at that point, and of course, extremely gross. Anyway, we decided to go down and check out the case. And now this, again, we did this without the psychological and profile or the physical, which means that we bypassed the process, which is a big no-no. I mean, it's a major mistake. Never, ever should ever do that. But in any case, we went to the house. She explained, and we were really amazed because we went to the location. The location was right next to a cemetery. And we thought that was very odd. And we're only talking about maybe 25 feet away from the outside of the cemetery. So we thought it was very strange. Anyway, we went into the house, and we sat down, and she started telling us about the case and some history. She told us that the father was a mortician, and that's the reason why the house was situated where it was. And in part of the house there is a viewing room, and where he had where he would take in intakes from the recent deceased and have services on the premises. And this was like going back about 25 years. At that time, her brother was only 4 or 5 years old, and the father would take him into the funeral parlor and basically try to teach him the business. The kid's only 4 or 5 years old. So the kid was around dead bodies constantly. And the father would leave him there in the viewing room hours at a time, and the child would wind up playing, and then actually playing with the corpse, and sitting in the coffins and manipulating the bodies and so on. And this became a very common practice. The father would come in and would just not even slap him on the hand, just say, don't do that, little Johnny. I don't want you in anyone's coffin. It's not the right thing to do. And let's leave it at that. Well, as time goes on and years go on, he, and when I say years go on, I'm talking about 3 or 4 years. The kid's now about 11, 12 years old. And for some reason, the father, who would work like 14 hours a day, would come in and eat and then go to sleep. Of course, in most cases, the son would be accompanying him. For some reason, many weeks have passed and the father didn't come in the house. And she thought this was pretty odd. But then somebody knocked on her door. She answered the door. It was one of the customers. They went to the parlor and they realized that that her father had passed on. And all this time, the father was dead for about 4 weeks, and he was in the funeral parlor. The boy was going in every day, and of course she's thinking that her brother is helping the father, in the mortuary. And actually, what he was doing was he was playing with the father, and they were playing, and then started playing with the corpses. And as a result, this was the whole profile of this young boy. She went with the customer and realized the father was in fact dead, and her baby brother, 10, 11, he was still there playing with the dead corpses. To say the least, there was a big scandal about it. They closed the parlor, and the mortuary was closed, and the business went out of business, but she kept the house. And then she was telling us this story, so we're listening to it intensely, and we're saying, wow, we're making notes, because this is additional information that was not in the first contact interview. So these were additional notes that we were taking, and found it quite interesting. It just so happens that she got very emotional, and she was about maybe 6'1", 6'2" in height. She got very emotional, and she dropped her face to her lap and on her hands, and she started to cry. And so one of my assistants was going to put his arm on her shoulder just to comfort her. And as soon as he started to do that, this little lady stood up, and she was no longer what we first saw. She was somebody else. She was no longer a little lady that was 5'1", 5'2". Her appearance changed. Her face changed. Her height changed. She was no longer 5'1", 5'2". She was more like 5'9", 5'10" in inches. Her structure grew. It literally grew. And then her face changed. She was no longer a lady. She was a man. She was an actual man, probably in his mid-20s. And he was an angry man. And he looked at us. And then, of course, Father Robert was my assistant at the time. Father Robert saw, and he was totally shocked. He'd never seen this before. He's assisted me on, I'd say, at least 20, 25 exorcisms. And in fact, we were able to get him right out of seminary. And that's what, he wanted to train to be an exorcist. And as a result, he'd been with me for about 20, 25 different cases of demonic possession. He was shocked. He's never seen a physical body change, transformed to the point where the physical structure grew inches from 5'2" to 5'9", and grew inches as the person stood up. It was a totally different person.
Oh my God, I've never heard that.
Okay,
ever.
At that point, I've never seen that before either. Quite frankly.
I mean, I've never even heard of it happening. Ever. I've never read anything about that. Is that in textbooks?
You will not hear things like this because they're not recorded. As I said earlier, real exorcisms, you will never find out what truly happens behind closed doors. You will never know what everyone truly experienced. When they made that movie, The Exorcist, that was based on a true story.
Yeah.
And that was pretty close to what actually happened. And again, that information would have never got out. And to this day, I'm thoroughly convinced that there were other things that were not included in the story. There are things that no one should be willing to listen to and learn about. There are certain things that you should not know.
But
because it would disrupt your life. It would disrupt your whole thought process, and as a result, you wouldn't be able to function as a normal human being.
Can I ask you another question? In the movie The Exorcist, I mean, she threw up this green vile stuff, and then her face distorted, but it was like really grotesque looking. Have you seen that before?
Oh yes, definitely. Most of the time, it's the vomit I've seen is, and it's not really vomit though. It is a regurgitation from the stomach, but it's a different substance. It's kind of a black in color, maybe even a dark red in color, very thick. And a person who is possessed has the ability to spit at the people that are around the person, and as a result, they could spit across the room and be dead accurate and spit right in your eye. This goop from across the room. They are so darn accurate.
Has that goop ever been analyzed by a chemist to see what it is?
There are a lot of things that have been analyzed by chemists, and always the same answer keeps coming up. Inconclusive data. We did analyze one time some what looked like blood coming down from the walls of a ceiling, and we analyzed some of that substance, and it was plasma, human plasma. Which is kind of interesting. But it was also tainted with other elements. Wow. As a result, you could test these things scientifically, and then you'll always have more questions. And then, of course, questions will follow questions, and then before you know it, there are so many questions, you forget what the original question was at the very beginning. So it loses its whole, contents. But getting back to this, do you have any more questions?
No, go ahead. No, please, go ahead, please.
Okay. Now, understand, again, this is extremely real, okay? At this point, I've never experienced this type of scenario. And I have done, in my 37 years in this ministry, I have probably done over 2,000 what I'd call real cases of demonic possession. And I've probably turned down or passed up maybe, 50,000, which were not genuine, which were other means, other causes. Such as strict psychosis. Not to suggest that if a person has psychosis, he would not have other problems with demonic issues, because that too could coexist. But when sometimes it's strictly a psychosis, if it is, then of course we refer them to other services like psychological services, counseling, and things of that nature. But what we're doing basically now is we are just witness. Now I have 2 assistants. And I have, who are clergy, they're Catholic priests. I have 3 people who are investigators. One is the lead investigator. So I have 5 people with me, and so I make 6. So all of us, we start looking at each other at that point. And this tall man started screaming with the voice that you heard on the recording, started to say, "You have no power here. What are you doing here? Don't you know if you're here any longer, you're going to die. You're going to burn in hell." And at that point, he turned to Father Robert and said, "You know your secrets. I know your secrets. If they ever get out, you're not going to have a ministry." And it was the ultimate threat. At that point, the lead investigator tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Let's leave." He said, "Let's leave," because this is getting a little bit more than what we expected. I paused for a second and I said, maybe it might be a good idea to regroup outside. I said, "Okay, let's go." Every one of us, we left the room, we went outside, and we gathered around. And we started talking about things like the legality of it. We did not follow the process. We did not obtain a psychological report. We did not obtain a medical. We didn't follow the process. Should we proceed? And so there I am. I have to make a decision, and I'm weighing the difference. I'm saying, well, okay, there is the legality involved. Okay, if something should happen to this person, we will be held liable. Or should we proceed and stand on our faith and believe that what we're about to do is going to be the process of healing through a ritual of exorcism? So I'm weighing these things, and I'm trying to think whether or not we're going to do this or do that. And then at that point, I was almost ready to say, maybe we should wait for the psychological and physical. Then I said, well, wait a minute. First of all, this person's stature grew in front of our eyes. It grew. I mean, it like literally grew from 6'1", and from 5'1" to 5'9". I mean, we saw this happen before our very eyes. We saw, we've seen the transformation of flesh turn from a gray to a healthy pigmentation of color, but this was different. Okay, the pigmentation not only changed to a gray color, but the characteristics, the facial characteristics was male, definitely male. And if I'm not mistaken, I even believe there was a 5 o'clock shadow around the cheek. I mean, this was a male, okay? And as a result, I'm saying, this kind of like bypasses perhaps maybe the process, I mean, we've seen this with our own eyes firsthand. And then out of nowhere, on the second story of the house, the window slammed open, and the lady that called us screamed out and said, please, please, please don't go. I need your help. Please stay. Don't go. Don't go. And she begged us not to go as she screamed to the top of her lungs from the second story window. I looked at Father Roberts and the other lead investigator, and I said, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Because I've never, to my memory, I cannot remember a time. See, when a person is possessed, a person can become elusive for a brief moment and then fall back into a full stage of demonic possession. This person was elusive just for a moment, just to scream out and tell us, beg us not to go. At that point, we said, okay. And I told everybody, and I just gave them the wink. I'm saying, we're going to do this, like, right now. So we went in there, and we went in there like as we were marching into a war. And in fact, in essence, it was a war, if you will, a fight of good versus evil. And as we walked in, she was still herself. And she cried, and she threw her arms around me. And I put my right arm around her, and then something started to happen. I felt things in her body starting to pop. And I felt like it felt like a bone starting to pop, and some of the muscles started to contract. And I kind of like, it threw me, and it spooked me to a bit, where I briefly pushed her away just for a second, only to see her transform into this demonic entity, which was no longer a little girl, but rather a man that was about 5'9". I stand about 5'10", so this entity was almost my size, at least physically, and I felt the bones pop into place as it stretched its extended frame into this fully erected individual. I immediately, and this was my physical first reaction, I pushed him away. And at that point, I said, let's go, let's do this. I had Father Robert grabbed her from the arm. The other priest, I think I can't remember the name of the other priest. Anyway, and so he, Lewis, and then Father Lewis grabbed the other arm, and then I had lead investigators. They, the one lead investigator and the other two, they grabbed this thing, if you will, and we immediately brought her to the ground, and as a result, we were able to subdue this individual who had tremendous strength. It took 6 of us to hold this thing down. At that point, Father Robert just took out some of the sacramentals, and we started our ritual. Now, the ritual of exorcism, it's an ancient ritual that has been performed for centuries. It's a format of prayers, a series of prayers that are said in a repetitious fashion. And at the end of the climax of the actual ritual, we ask a couple of questions, such as, when are you planning to leave this person? And what is your name? So these are like 2 major questions that we tend to ask. You see, when we identify the demonic by name, it gives us some leverage, because the prayers that we would be praying would be directed to that one demonic entity. It becomes more personalized, where the demonic feels the blows and it's more severe, where the demonic is weakened to a point. Just as the demonic would attack us by ways of demonic oppression, where they very slowly and by layers try to implant certain things in our minds, and then it becomes an obsession. And before you know it, we give up our will as a result of the torture that we're going through, that the demonic would conflict. We do the same thing to the demonic in reverse. We start praying. We start demanding in the name of our Lord. And we start using the power of God. We are using these strong elements. And the demonic knows very well who we are, who we represent, and also it knows the power of the names that we're using when we use our Lord Jesus Christ. As a result, that demonic is in a defensive mode. That demonic is fighting for its very existence. And as a result, we are continuing to do the prayers in a repetitious fashion. We do everything over and over and over again until the demonic is so weak. Now, in the interim, of course, the demonic is trying to distract us by screaming profanity, by identifying each individual in the room and talk about their issues, talk about all their negative problems in their personal lives. And he brings this out just to distract us. But we have to be strong, and we are, as we continue to say the ritual. So we stay on the ritual, we stay on the page until it comes to a point where the demonic is so weak, and at a point it's so weak it gives in, and it gives us the information we need. At that point, we start making our commands, in of course, in God's name, and as a result, the whole scenario changes, and we now have the leverage. And the demonic is literally placed in a submissive type of scenario where it has to give itself up and get away. And so it exits. And when it exits, you know. And in some cases, I've heard of loud sounds happen at the very moment a person releases the demon, where the demon actually exits the body. You can actually hear a sound throughout the house. Sometimes you could smell very sweet aromas that will happen. The person's face and texture will come back to what it appeared to be when it was normal. The flesh tones would come back. A healthy response would come out. Most times they are asking for food or water, and some may or may not have full memory. We have this defensive mechanism in our brains which throws things, and it's called repression. It throws things deep into our subconscious, so our lives are not disturbed, and there's no traumatic residual as a result of the experiences that they have gone through. So in many cases, they will forget through repression as to what actually took place. But there are other cases where certain memories will start surfacing. Understand, this is an experience that will always be with the person for the rest of their lives. And in order for the demon not to come back, they have to change their lifestyle. And so we give them guides as to how to do that, how to change your lifestyle, become more and have more relationship with God is number one. And as a result, this builds up the whole scenario. This is the whole process from beginning to end. This particular ritual and the amount of time it took was 4 days.
Oh, I was going to ask you that.
Now, yeah, it's not done like that. It's not done the snap of or drop of a hat. It's done. There's a process where we're weakening the demonic. If it's a multiple possession where there's many demons, it could be a lot longer, over a year, sometimes 2. It depends as to what the invocation is. But understand, throughout this whole process, we're taking breaks. Like every couple of hours, we'll take a break. Maybe a half an hour break, until we start hearing things happening in the room where things are starting to smash, the walls are starting to cringe. And then, of course, then we'd go back into the room and start all over again. But this is throughout the 24-hour period. We'd take a break every couple of hours. We'll take a half an hour break, maybe rest, and then go back in. And so this particular case lasted 4 days.
Can I ask some questions?
Yes.
Okay. When you ask for the demonic name, can you move forward, or do you have to wait until you get the name of the demonic that's possessing that person?
Well, we get the name of the demonic entity that's in that person, that's possessed, that is possessing the body of that person. Understand, the demonic, its personality is manifested through this human body, so we could see the actions of what the demonic is doing, just based on what's being manifested before our very eyes. When we see the stages where the demonic is being weakened, there are certain things that also gradually change. But once the person is completely delivered, then at that point, then we could continue the commands, the prayers, and then the person is back to normal.
But my question is, do you need the name of the demonic entity that is doing the possessing?
Yes.
Oh, you do. So you don't continue until you get that name from them.
Yeah. This is called an interrogation. You see, what we're doing is we're trying to gain as much information as possible. Main thing is the name of the demonic demon. Okay. That is responsible for this person's condition. So we have to interrogate that demonic and wear him down with a series of procedures that we follow. The ritual of exorcism is an actual chain of events that takes place. It's done in a very chronicle manner, where we have different parts of the ritual leading up to the point where we ask the name of the person that's possessed. They understand this too. We discourage any dialogue that anyone in the room may have or may decide to have with the demonic, especially if the demonic is accusing someone, or perhaps revealing some secrets of someone who is in the room, and maybe that person is trying to defend themselves. We try to discourage that. We don't want an ongoing dialogue with the demonic. Demonic has has the intelligence that far surpasses any human being. Understand, these demons were once angels. They were in heaven with God, and when Lucifer was thrown out, Lucifer took 1/3 of the angels with him, and those angels became fallen angels. And as a result, they have superior power. They have the power to do all the things that I've just mentioned. But most of all, you could never outsmart them. You could only wear them down.
So that demonic entity can really knows your secrets. It really does?
The demonic entity can look at you and can pretty much size you up and tell you all about you. Now understand this. This has been a big debate among the theological community, if you will, as to whether or not a demon can truly know the future or truly know your past. And that's always been a debate. And the truth of the matter is, who really knows the mind of a demon except God? All we could do is surmise based on our experiences, and that is, he is certainly very accurate in terms of telling us about our past, especially all the mistakes we've made. It's very accurate in terms of telling us what is happening at that particular time around the world, okay, or tell us the immediate future. They're extremely accurate. Now, as to how they have that ability to do that, I can only tell you that this is what we see when a person is demonstrating symptoms of demonic possession. The demonic actually has these abilities to do these things. Now, do they truly have the ability to have the insight and power to see into your very soul? You know, that's going to always be up for debate, because nobody truly knows the mind of a demon.
Do you record these sessions?
Every time we do a first contact interview and we conduct a demonic investigation, our investigators will record everything from beginning to end. When we're going to do a ritual, and I've already given the approval to do a ritual of exorcism for this individual. We are not going to record anything. Nothing is recorded. Okay.
It isn't?
The only thing that's recorded is the very beginning of the investigation, the first contact interview, throughout the assessment. All that is recorded, and it's recorded for my benefit because I review all the assessments. I have to see what they see. Now, understand, I have investigators and clergy around the world, and so I can't be every place, you see, or around the world. I can't extend myself that far. What I can do, though, is have them record everything by using their camcorders. And then they send me the CDs, and then I review the assessments, along with any printed information, such as the first contact questionnaire, and I review that, and then the psychological and medical reports. Now, once I have all this, I have the ability to yet see what's happening and yet not actually be there. So, thank goodness we have this modern technology, and we're able to have a ministry that's international. So this is what we do in 24 countries.
I'm really.
I'm going to tell you if you're ready for the next story here.
All right. Yeah. I'm just kind of. I just don't understand. I mean, I would record those. Every session I did, I would record, so I would have that on record. Because I don't know if I'm assuming each case isn't exactly the same, but it would be so great to look back and listen to each case.
The main reason for that is what we base our whole premise on, and that is confidentiality. Everything is extremely private. An exorcism, the reason you don't see an actual exorcism being filmed or recorded is because it's a very private situation for the individuals involved. They don't want this to be out. They don't want this to be released to anyone, or nor do they want a recorded proof that they had been at one time possessed. These are all the legal gratifications that we look at as well, not only for their privacy, but also in the event that something should come out, leak out, which is very possible. And if that should happen to leak out, then it's on the internet, and before you know it, we're looking at lawsuits. But again, we're really not doing it because it's a private issue between the person who is possessed, the family members, and the exorcist. Okay. This is only the people who are involved in the immediate. And that's why you'll never see a real exorcism actually filmed, for this reason. It has to remain private. We have our assessment reports. We have our recordings of everything throughout the demonic investigation. We have that. That's enough information for proof that why I decided to approve a case based on the evidence that was presented to me. So we see all the evidence we already have during the demonic investigation. What happens from the point of the actual ritual of exorcism, that has to be done behind closed doors. And the things that are revealed, and I've just revealed some, are pretty shocking.
Yeah. And
you may have never heard of these things before. And you may never hear of them again unless I happen to reveal some of the secrets, or someone like me, of course, of credible nature. These are things that are real, and as a result, we have to understand. We have to understand for what it is.
Okay, go ahead. You have another case?
As I said earlier, what I do is I look at assessments that our investigators send, and they send us the CDs, and I sit by my computer, and I will sit and stare at the monitor for hours at times, studying each case. I'm looking for outward manifestations that will show clear evidence of demonic activity. I'm also examining the person who's being interviewed. I'm looking at their physical body and their appearance as they respond to each question. And then at that point, I'm there with them, literally, at least by way of DVD viewing. This one case came to me, and it was a month. It was 1 month old. The investigation and the assessment was already done a month ago. They finally was able to get all the information we needed to complete and to submit their assessment. So it came, and I was looking at the DVD, watching what had taken place step for step. In the process, as I'm watching, and I have all my eyes glued to the screen because you don't want to miss a thing. Well, I saw something that looked very suspicious, and then as I looked closer, it was confirmed that it was something that would be considered a manifestation of something that would be of perhaps of demonic origin. As I continued to stare at the screen, and I'm only a foot away from the actual monitor, screen of my computer. I'm only a foot away. As I'm watching this closely, I feel a surge of energy come out from the computer and literally pushed me back into the back side of my seat, the resting side of my seat. It pushed me back at least 2 or 3 feet. It was like a surge of energy. And I instinctively became aware that something unusual took place. As I lifted my shirt, there was a handprint on my left side. The handprint was a black and blue. It was the palm and 5 fingers. And it looked like something pushed me to a point where it left a bruise, it left an actual physical mark. Now, a year prior to this, I was in a hospital and I was in critical condition for an exorcism I did. But I could go into that later. But I went back to the hospital because of this handprint, and to the same hospital because of my record that I was there a year ago under the same unexplainable circumstances, where I was in critical for almost 30 days after 3 operations, but again, I'll go into that later. They took a CAT scan, they took a blood test, and an x-ray. They did all 3 for this handprint I had on my side. And so after doing that, I sat in the hallway, sitting on a gurney, waiting for the results of their test. Wanting to make sure that I didn't have any blood clogs, and to find out if, in fact, they could give me a reason as to why this occurred. And I guess deep down inside, I knew what the answer would be, but I waited anyway. And as I'm waiting in the hallway, my shirt is up, and my chest is exposed, and my midsection is exposed, and the orderlies were passing me, and they saw the mark on my side and joked and said something, and very affectionately they said, "Oh, it looks like you were in a fight with Mike Tyson," and they started giggling. And I kind of thought to myself and said, boy, if they only knew. I mean, I was in a fight, all right, but it was somebody more powerful than Mike Tyson. Well, anyway, the doctor and a couple of nurses came and with the results as I was sitting on the gurney, and they said, we checked the CAT scan, we checked the x-rays, and your blood test came back, and we can't find anything. We have no idea what happened. We have no answer to give you in regards to how that print ever got there. We have no idea. It's funny because that's exactly what I heard a year ago when I had surgery and I had that 2-liter sack of blood around my heart as a result of being attacked during an exorcism, which nearly took my life. And the doctor said the same thing. We don't understand how this condition could be. We don't understand what we're seeing. We don't have anything to say about it. It's told, everything is conclusive. I have no idea. They just are puzzled as a result. And so it becomes a mystery. But then it confirms to me what I already knew. The surge that came from the computer was demonic. Understand, the demonic is outside our time and space. They can move around. And even though this assessment was done a month ago, to them it was not even a second ago. They walked through time and pushed me away from the computer so I wouldn't complete my assessment. As a result, it was a distraction because, as I said, the demonic is full of distractions. They want to distract you from everything. Get your mind off what you're doing, get you misdirected so you put your attention on something else and not anywhere near them or anything about them. They don't want you to concentrate your efforts in God's name in their direction. They're frightened. They don't want to know that they could possibly be told to leave. And as a result, they'll do everything they can to hide themselves deep, especially if it's a demonic possession. They want to hide themselves deep into that person. And every once in a while, the person will become lucid and say, help, help. And then all of a sudden, when the right person is there to help them, the demonic will take over. And with a very calm voice, the demonic will say, I'm okay, you can go. I'm fine now. I don't really need your services. And they will try to fool the exorcist and fool the people that are on his team. And this is what the demonic does. The demonic is a liar and is a master of lies and will deceive you and make you think of things that that will take your attention away from them. And that's what they want to do. It's a true story, by the way. That happened about 6 months ago. No. Actually, no. It happened the last 4th of July. So, it was right on the 4th of July. So, it was like almost a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah. True story.
Oh, yeah, I believe you. I believe you.
Yeah. Some, when you hear these things, I'm sorry. I have this condition right now where I feel a deep, deep pain in my side when I talk about such matters. And I tell people it's because it's a demonic nature. It's trying to distract me. Ever since that ritual a couple of years ago, my health has been declining. I've lost my hearing, as you know. My hearing is less than 40% now.
Oh,
my physical muscular area from head to toe, it pains. I'm in constant pain. But I look at it as perhaps my cross that I have to bear, like the Apostle Paul had mentioned the claw in the side, it's my pain that I have to bear, but I'll do it gladly because I know that what I'm doing is not only real, but it's helping a lot of people who really need our help. And that's what we're all about, So I'm not going to be laid up for any time soon. I'm going to continue to do what I do, and the pain is just an inconvenience as far as I'm concerned. I have to do and follow my calling. This is what I do. And I'll be doing this till the day I die.
Well, thank God there's people like you, Archbishop Ron Feyl. Thank God. It seems like there are more and more cases that are coming up. These possessions are just getting, the cases are getting huge. And it's all because of these certain things that you had mentioned earlier that people are doing. I don't, the age group. What is the common age group? Is there a common age group that this is happening to?
It's my opinion that there is an age group. It starts from age 1, first year of your life, to the very last moment, that the last breath that you breathe. The age group is all ages. When this thing came out, it was the Charlie Challenge game.
Yeah.
I noticed, and I did some research on the internet and saw all these kids playing with these 2 pencils and the cross, yes, no, and they were asking the demon, "Do you love me? Do you love me?" They were asking the demon, "Are you here and do you love me? Are you here and will you guide me? Will you join me? Will we have fun together?" And they're initiating a dialogue with the demonic. Can you imagine that? And all these kids, they're on YouTube, and they look so foolish as they're screaming and hollering when they see the pencil move, even just slightly, just a bit. They get all excited and they start cursing and jumping up and down and going crazy. And it's all part of the scenario. We live in a world full of demonic deceptions. The biggest lie that Satan will tell you and convince you is that he doesn't exist. He will try to deceive you and convince you that you have nothing to worry about. You can go out, have a great time. Don't worry about the consequences. He will tell you that party, party, and party. Get high, do drugs, enjoy your friends, enjoy life. Don't worry if you kick somebody in the event of you trying to get further into the corporation and becoming more, being promoted within your job structure. Don't worry about that. There are no morals. The demon will tell you there are nothing to worry about. Have a good time. Enjoy yourself. And that's what the demon will tell you. It will tell you, just enjoy yourself. All this other stuff, don't worry about that. Don't worry about this person that's called God or Jesus Christ. Or don't worry about any of that crazy, stupid religion. Life is too short. Enjoy yourself, And this is what the demonic will do. The demonic will deceive us to a point where we start believing it. We actually start believing these lies. And when that happens, then we're really lost. Then we start opening ourselves up to the demonic forces. Now that's the whole plan. The whole plan that Satan has is he wants you to drop your guard. He wants you to be comfortable in this world that's full of iniquity. But he wants you to make sure that you don't see the iniquity. He wants to make sure that you don't see what's happening. He wants you to be totally oblivious and enjoy life for what it is. Because after all, life is too short. At least that's what one of the coin phrases that the demonic might use. Life is too short. Have a good time. Party. The reality is, that life isn't too short. Life goes on. Even after death, life goes on. We will continue after these bodies are deep in the ground. We will continue. Where we wind up is really based on the cause and effect of our actions that had taken place while we were alive in this world. So, no matter what you might hear, understand, cases of demonic possession will always continue to grow as we get more and more interested in the internet and curious about certain things, about dark things. And we want more information, more input. And as a result, the demonic influences are all around us. The computer is the number one tool that Satan has used. It's a tool for pornography. It's a tool for all kinds of unspeakable things. And as a result, the internet can be a wonderful, wonderful tool for gaining knowledge. But in regards to what knowledge you're seeking is another issue. Because he's waiting as he's telling you a series of lies through radio, through television, through the movies we see, through any information that we should happen to view on the internet. All of these things are being brought to us. And it's like a subliminal message that goes on where the subconscious will pick up certain key words, maybe a combination of words, and perhaps maybe that's a demonic message that's going out. Now, maybe this sounds like way out there, okay? But understand, okay, this is something that maybe you have never heard of. Maybe you never were taught that these things are real, and they are. Understand everything that comes in regards to demonic is not only real, but it's going to affect each and every one of us. Each of us will be touched in one way, in one point in our lives. We will have some form of demonic oppression that will take place. Somewhere in our lives, we might live in a place where there's a demonic infestation, where the entire place is basically open to the realm of the demonic, where you start seeing things move by themselves. Things start happening in the house. The interior of the house may change, may alter. Maybe some fluids may start dripping from the ceiling. Very common. These things are happening more and more in these cases, by the way. Barking, where there's no dogs or anything. Or maybe there's a strong wind that may blow from one end of your house to the other. The winds are so strong, you could feel it as it blows your hair. You look around, of course the doors and windows are closed. Where would this wind come from? Or maybe the scratching, banging sounds that may occur in the middle of the night. And yet there's no reason why you should have these scratching or banging sounds. And there are so many things that will take place and may fall into the heading of demonic infestation. extremely. Now, when you talk about demonic possession, okay, now, you have to invite the demonic into your space for all these problems to take place. But the total and complete submissive to the demonic would be to gain some kind of influence. Maybe someone may think that they may be able to develop some kind of power, supernatural power. And as a result, if they just open themselves up to a demonic, perhaps maybe there would be a trade and they could have these powers. I understand, okay? And this is a horrible and crazy thing to say, but I'm going to tell you that these things do exist. There are people that start gravitating to various occults and where they will be led to do animal sacrifices, where blood is actually spilt on what they call the sacramental tools, and they start digesting the blood or smearing it all over their body and dancing and performing some form of satanic ritual. These things are happening in every city in the country, every city in the world. There is a group, there's a covenant, there are people that practice these forms of rituals, and they have a relationship with Satan, where they could actually experience all the supernatural things, and they think it's a thrill at first, but then there's the price you have to pay. The cause and effect. The price, the ultimate price that you have to pay in the end, it's not very pleasurable. But, of course, at the time, you're totally oblivious to that. And you get sucked further and further into it. Very real scenario.
Mm-hmm. What about this selling your soul to the devil?
Again, this has been open to debate from a lot of clergy, theologians, and so on. Now, if you ask the question to a group of theologians, they will tell you, you cannot sell something that does not belong to you. The soul belongs to God, and you can't sell the soul that is God's property to the devil. Now, that's what one group of theologians will tell you. Another group of theologians will tell you, well, if you give yourself, open yourself, and tell them that your spirit is committed to them and they could do it as they will for something in exchange, well, then it's going to happen and take place. And so it is possible. So you have one group that says yes, you have one group that says no. The only true person that truly knows the actual and accurate answer to that question would be God himself. But we as the clergy, we have our own personal deep-seated belief system in place when this is in regards. And I say this, whether you think you could sell your soul to the devil or not is immaterial. If you open a dialogue to the devil and you tell them that you're willing to give yourself to him, okay, and if he comes in and takes over, he will do it. He's going to be listening to every one of your thoughts, and he will listen to you as you verbalize your invitation. Understand, okay? The spirit or the soul is a byproduct of who we are, but understand this as to whether or not you could give it away or sell it. It's open for debate.
Wow. Oh my God. How are you feeling right now? You feeling any better?
Right at this moment, my pain has subsided from my side, which is good.
Oh, good.
And I thank you so much. You're so wonderful for being so concerned. And you know what? I have so many people out there that know of some of the things I've gone through. And God bless them. It's so wonderful to know you have so many friends that actually care.
Oh, I care about you. And I'm just so honored to have your friendship and to have you come on the shows. This is the second show. And I would love to have you come back again. Always welcome on my show, Archbishop, always. And I want to thank you so much for tonight. I know the viewers really enjoyed it as well as I did. I could listen to you all night long. Do you want to give, I have your website up and your logo. Do you want to tell the viewers how they can contact you in case they need some help?
Yes, they can go to, first of all, we have a lot of members on Facebook, and you can go to any of our members who are tied in with the Order of Exorcists, But our main website is www.orderofexorcists.weebly. That's weebly.com. When you go to that website, if you want our services, you have to do the following things. You have to follow our intake process, and that is you have to give us detailed information as to why you want our services, why you feel that our services would benefit your situation. Then I need you to give me your full name, and then I need to have your address, your physical location address. We do nothing over the phone or email. Everything is done face to face. Then once I have your address, I need to have your phone number, because we'll have one of our lead investigators call you and make an appointment so they can work the process which I had outlined earlier. And then that's, then we can get the ball rolling from there. Oh, understand too, all our services always are free. They are free of charge. That means no money. Okay, what we do is a calling from God. This is not a business. We don't make any profits. The only profit we receive are the blessings we receive from God himself. So don't worry about it. You do not have to pay a thing. God's taking care of us.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Archbishop, and my blessings to you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And anytime you want me to come back, just let me know, because I have a lot to say on this subject.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll send you a message and let me know what other subject we can talk about, or what further you'd like to talk about. And you're always welcome. Okay? I'll set up another date with you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. God bless you. Take care of yourself. Oh, and congratulations. I know your daughter just got married.
Oh, yeah. I'm still paying for it. Yeah, thank you so much. Good night, Archbishop. Thank you.
Okay, take care. God bless.
Thank you. You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Archbishop, thank you again so much for coming on the show. I hope everybody enjoyed Archbishop Ron Feyl. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have him on my show. He's an excellent speaker and so full of wisdom, and I just love having, and I will have him come back. Again, thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I just love topics like this. And you guys liked the show. It was great. We had a nice full house tonight, too. Hey, Kat, are you having a show? Are you doing anything tonight? Hey everybody, I'll do some shout outs. Stick around and I'll do some shout outs. Is Kat having a show tonight after mine? Thanks, Joe. So nice to see you all here. Oh, tomorrow. Okay, well, let me do some shout outs then. Let me see if I can see this. Oh, okay, so there's Sean Hathaway. Yay, Amy. Sharon Allen, Para Princess Patricia, Cat Angel. Hey. Barry Richardson, Whitney Van Selke, Amanda Merritt, Maria Amador, Whitney Van Selke, Justin Elias, hey Justin, Trent Bennett, Angel Luna, Royce Hinman. Gosh, it's so nice to see everybody here. The Keeper 81, Chipper, Quizzle, Country Roads, my buddy Dave Spinks, Cynthia Starlett, Sharon Allen, Debbie Bass, Whippers 86. I know Starry Night was in, and so was Mystic Hazard. I saw them. Hitman Death, Anita May, Kathy Salento, Danine Cavino Rogers, Lynn Bowling, Debbie Bass, Rebecca Whitehurst, Bessinger 11, Carla Butterfly Kisses, Michelle Anderson, Joe Moyer, welcome Joe, Astro, there's Mystic, hey Mystic, Mana 2112, 63B1, I can't pronounce it, Stamate, Diane Hilbert, I saw you last week, Doppelganger 399, Michael D. Wild, oh, Michael, I hope you're doing better, honey. Whoops, D Latin. Oh, come on, D Latin radio show. Per Bogolo. David Coffin. Anybody else? Oh, Justin, he's a great guest. Shelley Phillips. And I think I did say Whitney Van Selke. No way. Anthony Sanchez. Oh my God. Anthony, we need to talk. Anthony, oh my God, he's coming out with a new app. Mary Dallas. Elaine Melter Michael. And Susie Farrell. Oh, hi, Susie. Anybody else? Anthony, everybody stay tuned. Anthony is coming out with an amazing new app. I'm gonna get him on a show so we can present the new app. Dave Spinks, Country Roads Paranormal, has some awesome stuff coming out next month. Cat Angel has a show tomorrow night. We'll be posting that in Google and on Facebook. Yes, Anthony, we can't wait. Thank you. Anybody, Arnie, 77. Okay, Arnie. Anybody else want to shout out? We still have a ton of people. Oh, you said your last name. Honey, I can't pronounce it. Van Selke? I know, I'm sorry. Whitney Van Selke. I don't know if that's right or not. I'm sorry. Anybody else want to shout out? Carl White. Hey, Carl. Anybody else want to shout out? Okay, so tomorrow night, Kat has a show. We'll be posting that. Oh, it's okay, Justin. Van Silky. Thanks, Anthony. Anybody else want to shout out? Oh, it's kind of hard to read the names. I'm sorry, on the chat. I have to, because I don't have it really close to my face. Oh yeah, it'll be on Kat's YouTube channel. Okay, all right. Well, yes, live portal. I can't wait. All right, everybody. I want to thank you all so much for coming to the show. I really appreciate you coming every week. It's so nice to see everybody. Oh gosh, where's my calendar? Like Van S. Likey. Oh, Van S. Like. Silks rhymes with Mike. Van S. Like. Okay, did I say that right now? I probably won't remember. I've got the air conditioning on, but I turned it on too late. I have sweat pouring down me. It's really hot, but at least the computers aren't acting up. Let's see, who's my guest next week? Oh, God. Okay, next week's is July. Next weekend is 4th of July, but I have a show on Thursday. Paul Eno is returning, fabulous guest, and he's written a book on a haunted house. It is one of the most haunted houses around, and it's demonic haunting. It's a really severe demonic haunted house, and the book is supposed to be awesome. So he'll be my guest next Thursday. And so anyway, okay guys, well, Okay, I guess, yeah. Oh, guys, thanks for the mods. Thanks for the mods in tonight. I don't know if there was any issues tonight. It's really hard on Alien, but okay, Anthony, you can be the guest on that show. Oh my God. All right, so got some good shows coming up, but I'll see you guys all next Thursday. And again, I want to thank you all so much. I guess I said all the shout outs who wants to have their name shouted out. And I'm going to say goodnight to everybody. Oh my God, I'm just sweating here. And thank you again all so much. I'll see you all at Cat Show tomorrow night. Okay? So I'm going to say goodnight now. Good night to everybody. Again, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. Every week you guys are here, and I love you guys. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Good night.